used to this, man.
It's like right
Being a performer.
It's good though, it means you can't see other people. Makes it worse. You see people staring.
Your show was good the other day, by the way.
Oh yeah, thank you very much.
Amazing promo. Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. Just wow. I'm in the dark.
They showed us the cinematographer. I didn't even know what cinematographer was.
There's a director, there's a cameraman. That's basically it. But you look deeper into it, and there's like, you know, you've got production design.
People who make shorts, people who animate.
Music, there's composers.
Casting directors.
Graphic design.
Location managers. Editing.
It's showing me all those different groups of people and what they all have to do with film.
The day before my shoot I was terrified, but it's opened my eyes to how much work is actually needed. It made me a lot more of a team player taking part in this, and I think that's really good.
I didn't expect the detail that we'd be going into, and I really appreciate that. Even with the slate, like I had no idea how it worked. Knowing that makes you feel more confident on set. It makes you feel more professional than just a rookie.
Definitely feel a lot more ready than I did at the start of the week. It's weird how much a week can change you.
First day I realised this is actually really cool. A lot of people here are very passionate about film, and you can see that they're really enjoying it and they're getting tips, they get to work with professional equipment, and it's really just a good step into that world.
We've got a really, really talented group of young people who are desperate for opportunities. This creates that, makes them feel like it's possible.
It opened many doors for me.
With the BFI Academy, you get like a 3 years head start. You get that opportunity that people get at the age of 20.
I've gone on to work with them on productions, and their professionalism actually is very strong.
We now have a growing alumni network with partners such as BAFTA, so we offer mentoring opportunities, online masterclasses. We see them doing a lot of work together still. We see them making films, and we're really seeing them progress into the industry now.
I'm raring to go. I just want to start now if I could.
I'm going to wait here for a second. I'm not getting caught out again. All right, what do you reckon? All right, how you all doing? Yeah. All right, it's only taken you 4 days to get it together, the old kind of appropriate response to that question, but well done. What did I want to say? Yes, so you know there's a lot of stuff happens at the BFI for people aged 16 to 25. Hopefully you've cottoned onto the fact the Future Film Festival, you're here. You've worked out that that's what's going on right now, and that happens once a year. Every week though, we have screenings called Future Film Recommends, films picked from the wider BFI program, curated by young people, and that happens every single week. Once a month we do these events called Future Film Labs, and now that you know where we are, if you haven't been here before, you should come back during every month of the year to kind of learn all sorts of interesting stuff with film professionals. We do that every month. It's called Future Film Labs, and while you're at the festival you can pick up an annual pass. 11 events for a mere £40. It's a deal. It's a steal. It's sale of the century. Do you know what I'm saying? All right, all of that. And we also have lots of other programs. One of the programs that the BFI runs for young people is called Film Academy. You know, you should remember about Film Academy, because one of the other things they're doing today is that they are hosting our networking drinks at the end of the day. Okay, so you can grab a free drink if you've got a wristband, and you can grab a free orange juice or water or whatever if you haven't. But all of that's coming later in the day. Right now, though, it's time for us to kind of get into the session that they've kind of pulled together for this festival. Okay, it's all about finding your film crew, right? And I'm going to hand you over to the Film Academy team to kind of take you into that session. Let's give Carol May Barker a big round of applause, please.
Thank you, ERA. Yeah, thank you for joining us today for our Future Film Festival session called Finding Your Film Crew. My name is Carol May, and I am the Film Academy coordinator here at the BFI. And this session is in partnership with the BFI Film Academy. So, as this is a session on finding your crew, we are also joined today by the wonderful and talented crew of the short film 5%. 5% showed at the festival this year, I think on Thursday. And as this is a Film Academy session, I think the large majority of the 5% crew are Film Academy alumni. And as this is a session on finding your crew, they are going to share with us, well, they've kindly agreed to share with us their experiences on what it was like to work together as a team, how they collaborated, how they found each other, and how they were basically just kind of sharing the very intimate details of their career dynamics. So thanks for joining us, guys. So before I hand over to the 5% crew, just to introduce the film, and if you missed the screening of 5%, we are going to be showing it in just a moment, so you're in for a treat. And yeah, but before I hand over to these guys, just to introduce the film, introduce their role on the film, I'm just going to say a little bit about why we're holding a session today on finding your crew. And the answer to that is simply that filmmaking is a collaborative process. So regardless of what your role is on a film, you will always be working with other people. You will always be working as part of a team. And that sounds blindingly obvious. However, additionally, filmmaking is an intensely stressful process. And that's, without exception. And I'm sure that a lot of you here who are filmmakers or working on productions are very aware of that process. And how stressful it can be. And often working with other people in very stressful situations it's very difficult. It doesn't come very easily. It's a skill. It's something that you have to learn. It's not something that you can just kind of like rock up on set and just feel, you know, completely comfortable with everyone on your team. So, so essentially that is what we're going to be talking about today, and the 5% crew are going to be kind of sharing their experiences and how they've been working together. And I mean, I know from my own personal experience of working on film productions that, you know, you can be working for 15 hours on set, and, you know, it comes to the end of the day, you're tired, you're hungry, the catering was rubbish, and then, you know, the last thing you want to do is like feel really kind of motivated, you know, and motivating each other and, you know, getting each other kind of, you know, working well together in a team. It can be quite difficult in that situation. We throw the creative process in there as well, just makes it that much more difficult, because creativity requires a very dynamic approach in how you're working with other people. So for example, you can, you know, if you're a director, you can be the most amazing director on the planet with an amazing vision, but if you're not able to really communicate your amazing vision to your crew, or accept their input, which can often change, you know, what you've set out to do, what your plan is for the film, it just makes it that much harder for you to get your amazing vision to come to life. So that's why we thought, you know, it's something that's really fundamental to the filmmaking process, you know, regardless of what it is that you're contributing as an individual. You know, half of the work is actually working with other people, and it's often just as important as what you're contributing as an individual to the filmmaking process. And as this is a Film Academy session, and a lot of our Film Academy alumni, so Film Academy's been going for 6 years now, and we have 5,000 strong alumni who often meet each other on the network through a lot of the kind of alumni events that we do, and through the different kind of ways that they can connect. Often do collaborate and work together, so it seems like a very good opportunity to have this kind of discussion about how people work together and find each other in film. So now I'm going to hand over to Greg Bushell, who is the writer and director of 5%. He's just going to introduce the film. And then if you pass the mic down, you can just, everyone can just introduce themselves and what their role was on the film. And then we're just going to screen the film 5%. We're going to have a bit of a Q&A with the crew. And then we'll open up to audience questions as well. So please do have some questions ready. Okay, thanks.
Speak with here.
Yeah, you've got a mic.
Hey everyone, I'm Greg Bushell. I wrote and directed 5%, and the film, it's quite a simple idea. It's just about it's a parable about the dangers of technology in the modern age, and yeah, it's very gory, so if you're squeamish, maybe close your eyes, but yeah, hope you enjoy the film.
Okay, so should we start with you and then we'll work down?
Hi, I'm Hannah. I was the production designer for the film.
I'm Sam. I was the first AD on the film.
I'm Ben. I played the part of Drew in the film.
I'm Pete. I was the editor of the film.
I am Kim. I was a sound recordist.
So can I just ask, can everyone hear on the panel? Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, thanks. Let's show the film. Hey, so I think we'll just start by talking a little bit about the film, because I literally have a million questions about the film. So if you can just start, Greg, by telling us a little bit about the inspiration for the film, where did the idea come from?
So I'm like a massive like technophobe, like I hate social media. So when you like sent, I don't know if it was you, but someone sent an email saying share this on Facebook, I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But I guess it all just stemmed from that idea, and we wanted, it's quite a simple idea, and we wanted to just execute it in as professional way as possible. And we were borrowing from like the conventions and tropes of like old school low budget horror films with all the like effects. And I think I looked to like, there's like Martin Scorsese's, one of his first shorts called like The Big Shave, where it's about a metaphor for like Vietnam War, where he's just shaving and he just keeps on bleeding, and it's just quite an interesting short film. And I think there's like a Matthew Kassovitz film that we were also inspired by about like basketball. So yeah, those were the main like influences.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, because when I was watching it, I was thinking Black Mirror.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure a lot of people said that. Yeah, and obviously Charlie Brooker is a technophobe as well. So that's quite. And also, I did also think of Cronenberg Existenz. I don't know if you've seen that, but just kind of body horror. Yeah, like the man in the machine and the kind of conflict there. So when you were writing the script, so you had this idea and you're developing the script, at what point did you start thinking about your crew? Did you already have people in mind that you wanted to work with, or was it a case of, it was a bit of a longer process?
It all went so fast. I just wrote the script very quickly. Me and Pete have like collaborated on stuff for a long time, and we just wanted to like execute an idea as quickly as possible. And I had just come back from the BFI Film Academy residential, where I worked with Hannah and Sam, and Kim was on it the year after or before. And so I had a few people in mind that I knew from the Film Academy, and obviously I've worked with Pete before, and I spoke to Pete about like who could we get just to do this, and then we've known Ben since like primary school. So yeah, I did have in mind like cast and crew as I was writing it.
And was that your entire crew, or was there a process during the development?
It wasn't the entire crew. So I'd never met Kim before, but I think that I put out, ironically on Facebook, a message to, there's like a BFI Film Academy Facebook group, which if anyone isn't part of the BFI Film Academy, you should try get on the Film Academy to be on this Facebook group.
Definitely do that.
Yeah, and it's like so useful because you can just, I need a sound recordist in South London or whatever, and normally 5 people will respond. So it was like a bit of both, Yeah.
And you say that you've known Ben since primary school.
Yeah, we all went to the same.
You all went to the same school, okay. So the whole question of finding each other was like very simply, you kind of all knew each other. So you like pull in your kind of local resources,
yeah, but
so
I
to
think
speak.
it's more kind of like you need to figure out like who's already in your circle, and like because most of the time you'll know people with a lot of skills, and sometimes you have to figure out, okay, like who do I have already that I can network with, and then what you don't have, you kind of need to reach out for. That kind of makes sense. So like Greg already knew people that he could work with, and then just branched out to fill in the gaps in a way.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think it's also worth like just saying about like performances and acting, and I've said this before in like one of the other sessions, but I think it's quite difficult to find good like authentic performances at our level, where you're just making short films at quite a lower tier like student film types, and sometimes you can go on like Casting Call Pro or Mandy, and it's difficult to find like really good performances, if that perhaps sounds a bit bad, but also you don't have the connection with some of the people you're just going to meet on these online ads. So I thought like, how can you get a good performance out of someone? It's like, it's often finding someone you know. And
yeah, and my background is in acting as well, and performances and music and stuff, so yeah.
So the advantage was that you kind of knew how to communicate with each other. It was a lot easier in that sense, rather than just going with someone you don't know, and not knowing what kind of performance you were going to get. Because obviously this is a film where all of the drama is on the character, so it's quite, and there's no dialogue, so it must have been quite challenging for you, Ben, to like interpret the script. And like, how did you guys work together on it?
I remember, I think like the first meeting I had with Greg, he just told me like just be as naturalistic as possible. I remember you saying that, and like don't try and overplay anything, and you just have to kind of put yourself in a space where you're not actually thinking, like it's a different universe, like you're not in like this world, you're in, like, I guess it's just, you have to put yourself in a different space. And I think your job as an actor is to just communicate what you want the audience to see. So whether there is dialogue or whether there's no dialogue, your role is always the same. So I mean, it was I guess I'm saying it's not any more difficult than if there was like a massive script. You just have to do your kind of role to portray what the director wants to the audience to see, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, and also, so for like production design as well, it must have been quite difficult or challenging potentially if all the, so the location or the setting is, I wouldn't say arbitrary, but because all of the drama is focused on the character. Like, how did you work? How did you work with that, with the script?
So I thought to make the performance more like effective, I thought keep it simple, and also because a lot of it was like outside as well, when you see like with the basketball and stuff, and then with when it was in like the lift, because it was like a public area and everything, you have to like consider like people around you and everything. But I made sure that it was simple to portray like the characters like kind of strong performance. So that was what I did for the production bit. But yeah.
The other thing as well is, I think, just adding to what Greg said about using people, you know. I think Greg also, when you were writing a script, you had in mind just places that you know. So like for example, the ending's just filmed in my flat, and then we just used sort of like locations close to home, which also just brought a sense of, I don't know, just like ease and authenticity.
Yeah, so kind of pull in your like local resources again. Yeah. Okay, great. So you've kind of got your crew and you're developing the script. Was it a case of like, so during pre-production, did you all kind of work together to develop the script, or was it a case of like, Greg, you were in control?
It wasn't really me like stamping my foot down. It was just like time and money. Like, we didn't really have a massive pre-production. It was literally coming off the back of the residential, and I think quite a few of us were starting back up at uni, so there was just like this time constraint that we just had to get it done. So there wasn't really too much like faffing around working out like how exactly we're going to do it. It was just sort of that, you know, like can-do attitude where we just had to go out and make it.
We all trusted Greg as well, because it was off the back of the academy. Greg was the director of the academy when we were there, so he pulled in what he used there, and we all trusted through the film that we did in the academy that he'd sort of have it under wraps, that you could sort of trust what he was doing would be sort of right.
Yeah.
I think also it was just such a small, simple idea. It wasn't trying to do too much. So when you send it to people, like we were joking about how like it's quite difficult to like we struggle like reading big stuff, you know, and so it was, I don't know, a 5-page script. I think sometimes like just a concise project is quite like easy to get on board because it's quite digestible, but I don't know, sometimes your friend will send you like his 140-page script about leaves blowing in the wind and like ask you to read it, and you're just like, this is a bit overwhelming. But I think it was just such a simple idea. It was quite easy for everyone just to know that they can put their time and effort into it.
And not having a dialogue was quite easy to, you don't have to go through the steps of making sure your dialogue works, and throughout the script you're not sitting there reading, does this make sense, is this what this person would say to this person, and all that. You've sort of got your basic steps through.
It's quite easy to interpret
your storyline rather than what people are saying to each other.
Yeah, and I did find sounds was quite striking in the film, because obviously again no dialogue, and there was no music either. So, but you know there was quite the sound was quite visceral. Can you tell us a bit about where that come from?
The sound is pretty important within that, and we worked. Me and Pete worked like together with Greg to try and create sounds to push the narrative. I mean, whilst we were on set, I was recording sound, so we got a lot of Foley. So when Ben pulls like the earphone out of his ear, we got I think it was like washing up liquid or something to sort of make a squelchy noise.
I did wonder about that because I was it was so like, oh, made your teeth crack.
It's a lot of fun doing that, coming up with creative ideas or ridiculous ideas that you would not associate with like blood and horror, using, I don't know, ridiculous things to make noises. But
it was very important to make sure that there was something throughout, and so the audience doesn't get bored, or so that they know what's happening.
It's interesting. Sorry, I was just going to say it's interesting you were saying about the audience not getting bored with a kind of an idea where you have a script where there's no dialogue and there's no music, and those are generally the two things that are quite integral to audience engagement. So it must have been quite challenging.
Yeah, you want to keep your audience engaged throughout, and especially as you say, without any dialogue, it's difficult to sort of know where you're going or what the narrative is. So if you've got things like a lot of the noises were, or all of the noises, diegetic noises were.
Yeah, plus I'm really good.
Well, that goes without saying, obviously.
I think when I came to editing, because those were the two key things as well. Like we needed to make each sort of percent have its own beat and like reason to progress. So like each percent had to progress to the next one, and doing that as well with pacing. So like the two things that were important with sound was obviously the pacing of the film as a whole, and then amplifying the sort of like grossness of the tooth stuff. So like it was good working with Kim because she did the Foley with soap and stuff when we were shooting, and then I was able to sort of like I think I mixed that with some sort of it's like tomatoes or something. Yeah, I think it was like some sort of fruit that I was just squishing. And then for the because we didn't have a score, and I remember trying to work out with Greg how to like tackle that, because we wanted to keep it like fast paced and that. So I started then playing around with the sounds that are in like replace the score sort of thing. Were actually ringtones from an iPhone that I then just distorted.
Oh really?
Don't sue us if anyone
works
on Apple.
There's no one from Apple in the house, no? Okay, good.
But that was important in keeping the sort of like tone and the harsh sort of sound as well. We just sort of really wanted to make like a kind of cathartic experience that was quite condensed.
Yeah, I think things like that push it from sort of like a student film to like being more professional, because you thought things through, and like we'd talk with Greg about what his goal was, and made that like sort of inbuilt.
As well, that's quite an important thing a lot of people overlook that, especially with like student and our sort of level filmmaking. Sound is so important. As in, like,
it's often overlooked.
It's often overlooked, but it's actually like one of the most important roles.
It's half of what the audience are getting.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
And you're just saying about how you were working with Greg on getting that idea out. Like, what did you have a process for that, or was it just? Did you have regular meetings?
I came on board, I think, fairly late, but Greg had his ideas, and he knew what he wanted. So whilst we were like on set, he'd sort of verbally tell us sort of what he was going for and sort of what things he wanted, like blood noises or things like that. And we wanted it is quite visceral, and so we got what he wanted. And it was horror genre. You want to keep the audience on their edge, like not comfortable at all. So sort of going from that and then trying things and then bouncing off of each other.
Yeah. So there wasn't a huge like pre-production process at all, really. It was just mainly kind of getting on location and getting on with it. Cool. Okay, so let's talk about networking, because we all know that is kind of where you generally meet other people, and I don't know if everyone would agree, but I hate networking, and I think most people do, but no one wants to say it. And like going to events and like talking to other people, and like what are your kind of experiences of networking, and like what sort of do you enjoy it?
Yeah, so initially I'm quite scared of networking, but I often find kind of weirdly that when I try it too hard to like, you've got to make contacts, because that's sort of like with that word you just assume you've got to like constantly be adding to your like email contact lists and whatnot. But I find that if you just like are there to like have conversations with people,
just be normal.
Yeah. As difficult as that is, if you're just there just to talk to people, then it's a lot more organic, and you actually like form better bonds with people if you're there just to get to know people rather than having like a list of people I need to see and do this and do that.
So you don't do your research for an event, like who's going to be there, who should I approach, or no?
Sometimes.
What about everyone else?
I'm more to do a bit of research and who I want to talk to. I really enjoy it, talking to different people and seeing what their backgrounds are and how I can help them or how they can help me. I mean, back when I was freelancing and doing short films and stuff like that, I'd literally just come to events like this and talk to everyone and not stop talking. And then get sort of work in collaboration and make so many contacts, and everything that was offered to me, just saying yes, just so you can get on so many projects and get all that experience. And yeah, just so you've got that network. I mean, the amount of jobs that I've been booked for, just a friend of a friend, or needs a sound recordist, or I heard something, or oh, I'm shooting a film and we have no sound. Do you want to come along? And just be like, yeah, sure, stranger, cool.
Yeah, and also I'd add as well, like networking is like really important. It's even overlooked in terms of just trying to be successful. They always say, like, it's not like, obviously it's like, it's not what you know, it's like who you know, and that comes into play a lot if you like talk to successful people. Like there's always someone who's able to get their, they were able to get their foot in the door. And I think people think of like networking as like just a sort of like one-time event where you can always be networking through different ways, like social media. Even just see this as a networking event, even though it's a screening. You know, there's talented people right here, so that you can speak to. I know everyone's talented here, but you know, just as a point. So I think just also be creative when you're meeting people. Like it doesn't always just have to be a set event for networking. Like you can always be doing it, and that will help you get to where you need to go. So.
I think it's also important to follow up on that. So if you have been talking to people, like if we have network drinks later and someone does say, I've got a short that I'm thinking about doing, and sometimes you can just like let that slide and be like, oh, okay, sure, not too bothered, but definitely send an email later and be like, you mentioned this, is there any chance I can get on board? And then you can progress from that.
As well, I think it's just a good idea to hold on to people who are just generally like creative in any way. Like for example, Ben's not an actor, and Ben was just someone who I know who'd be willing to like do something like this. He's just open-minded to work on any sort of creative project. So it's just good to hold it. Like if you know anyone who's like just willing to like progress and do stuff, then they're useful in their own right.
That's why I think a lot of established directors generally work with the same crew time and time again. You know, you hear about it all the time. Directors working with the same DOP, the same editor, and you know it's because they've found people they can work with, you know, communicate well with. So yeah, that's a good point. So can we talk about team dynamics and hierarchy? I mean, obviously this is it's a relatively small crew. It's a short production. Is leadership important? Is it something that is key to working together?
So on the BFI residential, which was incredible, and if you haven't done it, you should all do it. They give you so much stuff, like you're shooting on ARRIs, and they just put you in an environment that feels very, very professional. But from my own personal experience, I found it really difficult, and it was a bit of a like baptism of fire for me, because I was having a million people asking me questions, and I think I was a bit too like democratic with the way that I was taking on board ideas. But I learnt a lot from it, and then with this project, I think it is important to have like authority. Like, that isn't like a dirty word. Like authority is sometimes a good thing on a film set, but it's just about striking a balance between like not being too much of an authoritarian where your crew feel alienated and feel like they can't speak to you, and then also not being too much of a pushover where everyone's ideas sort of go onto each other, and the end project becomes like quite confused. So there's a balance to strike, definitely.
And how did you find that experience on this film? Did you have a lot of input from your crew members, and was there a moment where there was something like, okay, that's not going to work, and it was difficult or challenging to say no?
I don't know. You guys' memory might be better than mine, but I think it went very smoothly in terms of that respect. Everyone was very like tactful with the way they would add ideas to stuff. But I think overall it went quite well in that respect. Yeah.
It's a trust thing between each other and friendship.
Exactly,
Like you're saying, like big directors will use the same crews because they're so used to them. They trust each other with what they're doing. You might say something, and then your first AD or your DOP might say, "Oh, well, you should try this," and then you might trust what they say. Like you build them bonds with your crew members on how you're going to talk to each other, and how you might be so like narrow-minded about this one shot that you've got in your mind, but it's important to talk to other people that you trust, because then they might have a different look on it, or they might, I don't know, you like he's saying, it's a fine line between having your own vision and keeping to your vision and not letting other people sort of push over what they want. It's like at the end of the day, it is Greg's film. Like,
so you respect that.
You've got to respect what he's doing.
Yeah.
So then you've got to come and like we're just trying to help each other, kind of thing. Like we are sort of, we've built that friendship and that trust that like we sort of respect each other's sort of creative decisions.
So nobody was like, I've got this amazing idea for costume or something, I want Ben to be wearing like a clown suit, I think it'd be amazing. There wasn't any kind of moments like that where it was like really difficult to
I guess it was more like if there was a situation like that, it was more like something's gone wrong and we need to come up with a quick solution to it. And then it was like, because I think Greg had quite a clear idea of and was quite clear in communicating how he wanted it to look and how he wanted to do it. But then, for example, like stuff like the sun going down and then having to find like ways of like light in the room and thinking of creative solutions to that, it was very useful having Louis was the I can't remember, DOP to do to help with that sort of input and stuff like that. But it was because Greg had clearly communicated before how everything should look. It was kind of more about finding solutions.
I think there were like a few frictions on times. I think there was like.
Please do elaborate on those.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be 100% honest, like.
Yeah.
But I don't think there was no train wrecks. But I think like at one point, like me and you got into like there's like a mini sort of argument about like how we should do this bit. Or whatever.
Was that in the edit?
No, it wasn't. It was literally like just at the end of a long day. I think it wasn't like a big like tear up. But
come on, guys, give me some drama.
But.
Was that when the sun was going down?
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's important just to have it like if your crew's like a family, then it's sort of like the way you bicker with your brother or your sister, where you can sort of have it out a little bit, but if at the end of the day it's still like an unconditional relationship, like it's okay to have a few little arguments, but overall it's fine.
So at the end of the day, so how long was the shoot? It was. How many days?
It was 2 days.
2 days.
Stretched out, yeah.
It's
because everyone was in different places. Everyone went to like uni or work.
Or
whatever. So we had to do like another day at the like quite a long time after, just doing pickups and other little reshoots of stuff.
Yeah. So did you find yourself like regrouping at the end of like the first shoot day and saying this is what we need to do? And
so we were lucky enough to stay at Greg's house. So we were all round his until late that night. And
so communication wasn't really an issue. No. I
remember we had another problem as well because we did have to like regroup it after the first day shooting because we were filming the scene where Ben's on a bus and he's scrolling through Facebook, and we'd like set up loads of fake Facebook accounts just because we didn't want to use other people's, and then Facebook closed all those accounts, so like we couldn't stage a like fake Facebook like thing for him to scroll through. So then we had to like emergency come up with a solution to that, and then Sam just created like another group of fake pages which had to like write fake statuses for it.
So was that quite a stressful moment?
That was an example of something that was quite stressful.
Yeah,
that we had to
but you all managed to kind of keep it calm and professional. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, I couldn't get the game. Like, at the beginning, when I'm playing the game,
the basketball game.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
Like, it
Couldn't
goes
get
in
in the
the
hoop.
Couldn't
you
get
couldn't,
it.
you couldn't do it.
Can I just ask about that moment, because I was having an argument with a friend that I showed the film to, and I thought that whole game was in his head at the beginning.
It could potentially.
It could be,
Yeah.
okay, open to interpretation.
Yes, yes. Open-ended.
Open-ended, cool. So obviously this was a small independent production that you were kind of working on together, so you can kind of make up the rules as you go along. But have any of you worked also freelance on bigger productions where, you know, there's been different kinds of rules in terms of things like communication, teamwork, hierarchy, and how does that differ?
So I went through the British Film Institute for Future Skills. So I was lucky enough to work on the Han Solo film. I'm sure you guys know Star Wars and stuff. So I went through that, and I went through the department props. And I found that from working with these guys, it's very different, because obviously it's like an independent film and then going to like a blockbuster, and the environment's very different. But I think it prepared me, because from being in the professional environment when we went to NFTS, it kind of boosts your confidence that you can be in that industry. But then like when you have like your props mask and everything, it's a different kind of, I felt like a different kind of authority, but you also felt like you could have a good connection also on a, you know, like a genuine level. But yeah, it just, you've got to keep professional, but also, you know, have that genuine kind of yourself towards them, be nice and everything, but also be hardworking. But yeah, that's what I've done since it.
Would you say it was more important to understand your kind of key relationships?
Yeah, so like when meeting them and everything, like be professional, and then you kind of become more, not less professional, but you can kind of have like a bit of banter with them, whatever, but then you know that you've got to also work hard with it as well. But yeah, just be yourself towards them, because then they like that. They like you being who you are, not artificial, because then it's like an organic relationship between them, and then it helps you progress further into, you know, further like jobs and whatever. So yeah.
Thanks. Anyone else have any kind of similar experiences, different experiences?
I think on a feature, hierarchy is definitely more important, and it's definitely more structured and firm. So when we were working together, I would do sound stuff and organise, because I had a partner as well, so organise what we were doing. But then I think also at one point I had like a reflector board to get like light coming in at the right angle. But that's not my department. But you sort of just chip in, and it's flexible. Whereas I suppose on a feature, because like our team at Pinewood were also doing the Han Solo film, but I think I encountered Hannah once whilst we were on site, and we wouldn't actually talk to each other directly. So if there was some kind of problem in props, it would have to go from Hannah to like the props master, then up to like some senior management, come round to editorial, and then back down. So you'd never actually have that direct conversation. You would we wouldn't have that rapport. It's sort of just over email, so you don't get to see the other side of the department, or what they're trying to get out of the film, or what they're trying to convey. You just sort of be in your dark office clicking buttons.
Yeah, and so but on a film like this, on this sort of production, you kind of you've taken on lots of different roles, and everyone's chipping in, and it's probably a lot easier to communicate with each other. It's a different kind of working environment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more direct.
But did you find it was ever sort of fall into the unprofessional, or did you always maintain
the line
your?
Did blur, I think. I was standing in at one point when Ben has the scene where he's leaning towards the switch. I think I was on the floor for a good 5 minutes.
Sorry.
As they were no. But you have to. There's not that many of us, and your budget might not stretch to get somebody to lie on the floor, just to pay them to lie on the floor and be a stand-in. But if you're in a feature, you can be lavish enough to spend that money. But it's okay, and it's good to do that. Sort of chip in and see what other people are doing.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're not shooting anything, you don't actually have to be standing there with a boom. So
yeah,
you're quite happy to
do other stuff.
To step in.
Yeah.
Just to get it done.
Yeah. And so you guys didn't have a producer, did you? We did.
No.
So how did that work?
Yeah, that was very difficult. So I was sort of acting as a producer, but then Sam was also a producer. Like on set, Sam was a producer. He was first AD really, but he was sort of in charge of time management. But in terms of bringing people together and like organising stuff, that was me, which was quite difficult when you're trying to be creative, and then you need to be emailing everyone. And I think we ran into a few issues with like location permission, which you guys should probably get, but for this film we didn't get at all. And there were a few like issues on the set where, like, you know, like the tunnel scene.
I was getting really concerned with that. Like,
well,
the public could have gone past, and then there was Ben just dripping in.
Yeah.
And there were children as well. They saw someone covered in blood.
So like, quick, Ben, turn around.
Just to throw a blanket over him as someone passed.
Yeah, it wasn't that professional in that sense. I think there was one bit where a guy came up to me and he got really aggressive, and I was like, "Oh mate, we're just filming this film. Would you mind just waiting 2 seconds?" And I think he got really aggressive and like threatened me.
Why?
I don't know. He was because
you were just there for camera.
He was like the big man around that area or something.
Oh, really? You say, "Don't you know who I am?"
Yeah. And
did you know who he was?
No idea. And then I think I was like, okay, sure. Went back down the tunnel, and Pete was like, "Yeah, mate, you need to go. You need to go." And I was like, "Pete, no, don't say anything." But yeah, no, there was like a few issues with locations.
People didn't like us filming around their flats as well.
Did you do any work with local residents beforehand? Like, just be like, we're filming?
Well, like, because we was very quick and we didn't have time to like warn like people from the local area. People often came out and were worried about how the area was being represented.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Because I don't know, like. We had a lot of people thinking we were making a film like that was sort of gang related, because Ben was like in a hoodie and bleeding, which is a bit of a weird,
And you were just like, no, it's just your average body horror. It's fine.
It's just a film about boy with his phone. But
but I think one of the things to take out of this as well is like take risks, because at the end of the day, like, I mean, we had to maneuver in a certain way so we could get the product that we wanted in a certain time. And in order to do that, we had to take risks. And worst case scenario is it didn't work out, but you know it did. So take risks, innit?
And can we talk about your role, because first AD is generally the kind of, you know, the point of communication between set and production. How can you talk about your role and your kind of key working relationships?
Well, I was there helping Greg out mainly as your assistant director, but because it was such a tightly knit crew, like there's only like the majority of us are here. Like I think there's a couple that we're missing, so talking between each other wasn't that difficult. Like at some points there was points where I had to look after a wheelchair because we had a wheelchair in it, so I had to step away from it, and that was in the tunnel scene because the tunnel was so long we couldn't have things in the tunnel obviously because you'd see it in the shot. So there was a part where I was looking after all the kit, whereas everyone else was on set, and then we had people at the top of the tunnel not letting people down through the tunnel. So between at that point I think we only had you, Ben, and I think there was only a couple of people in the tunnel. So like because we are so small, we were spread out in this quite a big scene for the film, as in the location was big. Like, so communicating between me and Greg was quite important there, but again, just using our phones, just texting each other whilst he was.
Comms or anything.
Yeah, we didn't have any.
No radios.
No, I had no radios or anything. So it was just ring Greg up, and there was a part where someone was the other side of the road underneath the tunnel, and there's buses going past, and you're trying to wave each other down, trying to get them to go back downstairs, and so communicating between the crew at some points were difficult, but at other times people were quite happy to just sort of bypass me and talk to Greg directly, because there was parts where we were sort of just chatting about what was happening. It didn't really necessarily, it wasn't as professional as that would be, kind of thing.
It would probably be required if you had a bigger crew.
Yeah, if you had a bigger crew, it would. You'd go through the formalities of talking who you're supposed to talk to first.
Yeah.
Whereas it didn't quite work out like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because we were so.
That's good. Yeah.
Such a tightly knit crew as well. Like, it was fine if someone needed to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I remember working on a film as a producer and having the first AD tell me that I couldn't speak directly to the director without his presence. So it's it's that kind
really
of
necessary in a sort of scenario like that. You've got to sort of take a step back from the role that you have, kind of thing. Like it's not necessarily needed in that specific moment.
So
like,
thinking more dynamically and flexibly
sometimes
about how you're working.
It's necessary. Sometimes I needed to be there. I needed to talk to people for Greg because Greg would be busy doing something else. I needed to work out the sort of how it was going to happen. So say there was something wrong with the props or the like his blood or his costume, but Greg was sort of midway through the shot. I'd talk to them for Greg and then relay the message to Greg.
Yeah.
So, but then at other times, if nothing was happening, they're happy to, and Greg was happy for them to just talk directly to Greg. So you've got to sort of find the balance of where you're needed in a small part like that kind of thing.
Great, thanks. Okay, so I think now we can open up to audience questions. If anyone has any questions for the crew, it can be about teamwork or it can be about the film. There's some mics. There's a question here. Actually, is there a mic? Yep, over here.
So, do you think you could have made this film with no budget at all and with half the crew?
That's a good question. Well, we didn't have much of a budget anyway. I think the budget was about £100, and we didn't get any funding. It was through sort of begging and borrowing. Like the DOP worked for a camera hire company, so we borrowed his equipment. And so I think
that's always good, and to have someone who works with a camera company, because that can put your budget through the roof sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So that's another thing about finding crew is like go to people that work at Kodak or Panavision or wherever. And it would have been difficult not spending like £100 because I think also you need to like stuff like catering is really important so people don't lose energy. And like we had to obviously buy Ben's costume and all the blood stuff. But yeah, it could have been made for nothing, but I think we were stretching it as it is, you know.
Is it easier if you've got, like you were saying about catering, if you're working with essentially people that you've worked with before that you know and who you're friends, is it easier to be like, oh guys, we can't really have like hot food, but as opposed to people that you don't know where you feel like you're more obliged to feed them properly and be more professional?
Definitely. I think, yeah, the further you go, you expand out of these sort of like social circles or when you just are getting people online or whatever. I think it always just pays a lot to like feed them well, pay their expenses if you can. So budget is often, I think, going towards those sort of things that just show your appreciation for other people working on your project.
Any other questions? Got one?
Hi. How many pre-production days or hours went into the film, and then also how long did it actually take to shoot and then do the post?
So it was pre-production was really quick. It was like a week or something. Like it was very, very quick. And then shooting was 2 days, but as I said, they were like stretched across like 6 months or something. And then post-production, was really difficult because we were all in different parts of the globe. I was in on my year abroad in America. I don't know if you're American, but yeah. So it was difficult, and like I'd be calling Pete up, and he would be like asleep because it'd be like 2 a.m. for him, and so it stretched it out for a long period of time, the post-production. But if we were all in the same place, it would have been done in like a week.
Yeah.
For helping with me putting together a a short film, so for camera hire, for sound and stuff like that, where I can go and find people.
Right here, right now.
Right here, right
Turn
now.
around.
Okay.
Ask some people.
Right. Outside of here, if there's anywhere that I can, I don't know, forums online or something.
Future Film Labs.
I didn't come up from like a film background. I mean, in high school I studied sciences. I don't know why now, but I went to the BFI Film Academy. So if you're between, I think it's being 16 and 19, 20. I'd suggest go to that. But also, I think Facebook is really helpful, and it's really helped me. If you just type in Facebook, London Film Network, for example, or young people in film, or London actors, or anywhere around the country, or UK actors, for example, you can just join it, and there'll be just loads, hundreds of posts of relevant things. So if you're saying I'm looking for an actor, or I'm looking for a runner that can work for nothing, so that's your way in. So just say, hi, I'm happy to come to your set and learn and help out if you reimburse my travel, which they usually do, and provide catering, which is all good. And then from that you can expand your knowledge completely. So I didn't know much about sound design before I actually went on set. I think I did like mixing in my drama in high school, but other than that, just like, I don't know, wing it, fake it till you make it, because you can pick up so many things when you're actually hands-on learning things. So even if you're a runner and you want to get into props, for example, you will meet somebody who is in production design, and then you can learn so much about that, and then maybe they've booked another project in a couple of months, and then just keep hopping and keep going.
Great, thank you very much.
And what would you say to people outside London, because it is notoriously more difficult to get into filmmaking if you're not kind of in London?
I think I've just been told by a few people that work in the industry that there's, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's like shortages in like film workers at the moment, because like British film is doing quite well, and so I think even just having the guts to email production companies wherever they're based in the UK can always be useful, and I think just getting on-set experience is always like a good tip. But yeah, you're right, I'm not too sure about outside London.
I'm not from London, I'm from Essex, so I'm close. It's about an hour for me to get to London. So
where are you based?
In Southend, in Essex.
Okay, yeah.
So it takes me about an hour to get to London. So the thing is, I just utilise London because I am so close.
But if you're from Scotland,
yeah, that's the thing. I don't know how.
Or from somewhere like really remote, and it's just a cost, isn't it, to even get to London?
Trying to get, but it's good again, just using the internet and social media just to get into these places. And then I always see it on Facebook posts. Oh, I'm working here. Has anyone got a spare bed or a floor that I can sleep on? I see that quite often, and you do get friendly enough with people to sort of stay in their house like every now and again. You might build a little network. Like after this film, I stayed at Greg's. Yeah. Like Greg was like, stay at mine if you want, and after this today, it's like, you can stay at mine. I was like, oh, I'll go home. But certain things like you can, like you do make friendships within it, and London is quite the hub of it, but I guess most people who are here must be quite close because they're here, kind of thing, and they must have ways round of being here.
Yeah.
There's those BFI film academies as well. They're all over the place. Like there's loads, like Scotland, Ireland, all over the place, and also they offer bursaries as well. Because I think I got a bursary when I was doing my regional and my and the NFTS one. So if you don't have much money or your family, that you can just they can help you out with that. So it's become more accessible due to the BFI film academy. Just get a train. I think we had for the NFTS one, we had some of the guys from Dublin fly over and like come down from Scotland. So if you're dedicated, there's ways to help, and people, and the BFI will help you out.
His ways and means, and just about social media, because Greg, you were saying you're a technophobe and you hate social media, and I can completely relate to that. But is there a pressure to build an online presence when it comes to this, like in terms of meeting crew and like establishing your reputation and
I can answer that,
as a filmmaker?
Yes, there is. I think in everything as well. Like I think social media is the new almost like capitalism in a way, which is kind of weird. Like, you need a certain amount of followers just for actors or for a brand or anything. Like, people are so kind of superficial to look like at your social media presence first and then pick from a kind of like crop, you know, and from that. So I think your own talent and your own skills are more important than that. But I think if you do want to kind of like keep up with, you know, the status quo, you do need to focus on that as well, even if you hate it, because yeah, it's just a way. If you want to do what you need to do, there's certain things that you need to do. Does that make sense? But yeah.
I think it's pretty amazing now. Like with the rise of YouTube, you can be in the middle of nowhere. All you need is your phone and a Wi-Fi connection, and you can build your own brand and start posting things on YouTube and just what you like to do, like make, I don't know, sketches and things like that. And then if you have like 10 videos and upload successfully, you can start to build the following. Doesn't matter who you are, if you have that dedication and you've made something that's tolerable, usually you can find an audience.
Any more questions? I've been told to wrap it up. How much time have I got? Any more? Are we over? Oh, sorry. Can we take one more question? If anyone has one? At the top. Sorry.
So I want to get more into directing, and I find it quite daunting, the idea of like having a vision and articulating it. And you can tell that everybody was on the same page with this, and you had a really strong vision. And I was wondering what you said to your crew to kind of get them all on board and to get them to know exactly what you had in mind.
I think you're sort of correct in being like a little bit scared about it. It's quite a difficult thing to do, and I don't think I'm naturally a good person at like articulating myself. I'm getting better, and it's an ongoing process. But I do think if you're able to work on like verbally expressing yourself, that is really useful. But also, cinema's like a very visual medium, so it's okay not to be able to say exactly what you're thinking. Like it can be quite good to do drawings, or like I like to illustrate and do paintings, or even find like other films or photographs. I think it's Joe Wright, the director. I think he like really suffers from being able to like verbalize his vision, and I think for his first film, he like his pitch, he filmed it and just showed it to people when because he felt he couldn't express it verbally, and so I think you can use a lot of different ways to get your vision across. But yeah, in regards to just having a vision, I think that's just something you just sort of sit in a dark room and think about a lot, and then it will develop quite naturally.
If it's something you're passionate about and your crew can see that, they usually jump on board and they wanna go for it. And because like this was very important given like the time, like how we are attached to our phones, and I think we were all like keen to get that idea across. So given Greg was really into that idea, we saw that and we wanted to help him.
Thanks very much. Yeah, 5% crew, everyone.